it's not January, it's March 4th, 2021. And we are excited to welcome you to our Police Accountability Board meeting tonight. And just wanted to go ahead and say thank you for tuning in. And we're going to go ahead and jump right into it because we do have a lot to cover tonight. So Connor, if you can go ahead so that we can take a look at the minutes from last meeting, please. They're very brief. So we're going to go ahead and review and approve the minutes. And when everybody's all set, then I'll look for a vote, or I'll go ahead and look for somebody to move to approve these minutes.
Yes, I move that the minutes be approved as read.
Second, please.
I'll second.
All right. All in favor of approving the minutes?
Aye.
Okay. Any opposed? No. I was going to say abstentions, but I'm not going to be like that today. All right. So that is our minutes are approved. The second item tonight is we are going to go ahead and review some recent meetings that we have had with city council members and Mayor Warren. Executive Director Reynolds, can you go ahead and start with that review, please?
Sure. So on just to remind folks, back at the beginning of February, the end of January, we asked the city to provide us with all relevant information regarding the pepper spraying incident on Harris Street involving a handcuffed 9-year-old. We sent a number of letters following up, continuing to ask for more information and more specific information, including a 12-page letter sent to Corporation Counsel Tim Curtin on February 16th. In response to that letter, Mayor Warren asked to set up a meeting to discuss our request for information. We accepted. That meeting happened last Thursday. In attendance was Councilmember Mary Lupian, Corporation Counsel Tim Curtin, Mayor Warren, City Council President Loretta Scott, Chair Shawnee Wilson, myself, Rabbi Drora Settle, and Dr. Harrison, I believe, was also there, if I remember correctly, Bob. So we all attended this meeting. The meeting consisted of a similar presentation to the one that Shawnee and I gave to this board last week about the information we had received and the information we had not. That information was provided to the mayor, as well as Corporation Counsel Tim Curtin. A few things were discussed. There seemed to be still some confusion about the idea that we had not received all the information that we had asked for. And so we went through our letter pretty fully. It became apparent that the mayor did not fully understand that we had requested many different kinds of very specific emails. And so it came out at that point that Corporation Counsel was responding to at least some of our requests. He informed us that he had been looking through thousands. He said that our search for emails hit thousands of emails. And so he and his team were sorting through that, and he'd get that to us soon. Corporation Counsel expressed the story that Corporation Counsel told was that RPD was willing and ready to provide us with information until we sent a letter that seemed adversarial and aggressive in tone. At that point, the city asked him to get involved to push back, in his words, against the PAB's requests. And that's why Corporation Counsel got involved and started saying, that RPD can't respond to these certain requests, et cetera. Corporation Counsel, mentioned that he believes that a bunch of the information that we're looking for isn't relevant to our investigation, and he doesn't necessarily believe the city has to hand over all the information we've requested. The mayor continued to express the idea that we are assuming that there are documents that we don't have that exist, and I think as we've all explained to the public, we know that there are documents that have not been turned over because we've seen them from other sources that aren't the city, including we've seen them in FOIA requests, we've seen them in the hands of journalists. So we do know that there's still information out there we don't have. There was I'm going to get to the other meeting on Friday with the leadership of City Council in just a minute. But to wrap up on this meeting, what was discussed was the idea that there needed to be, or at least this was what Corporation Counsel said, was there is a need for a kind of MOU, memorandum of understanding. That's a legalistic term for just a written agreement that's not legally binding. And the idea for that agreement was to, quote, facilitate the transfer of information between the city and the Police Accountability Board. It's part of the problem with this agreement is that the law is somewhat clear on the fact the Police Accountability Board can request any information. One useful thing out of that meeting was that we showed Corporation Counsel the relevant section of the law that says that the Police Accountability Board can request any source of information, the city has to provide it, and Corporation Counsel confirmed that there's no limit on that power. So it was useful to hear that from Corporation Counsel, that he understands the law in that sense. Corporation Counsel still seems to think that an MOU is necessary to potentially limit and define what relevant information counts as, which again, the only thing that's the law says is that if we deem information to be relevant, the city has to provide it. And so, whatever this memorandum of agreement is, unless it is solely limited to something like dates and deadlines for providing information, I would suggest that we do not sign anything like that that would arbitrarily restrict our power. I'll also say that we have rulemaking power to make the rules for our own procedures. And so our ability to do that and set deadlines our own is something that we need to explore with our own council. What I've only had one follow-up conversation with City Council's lawyer, Loretta Scott, not Loretta Scott, Linda Kingsley, who said that she, as of this morning or last night, hasn't quite gotten to drafting MOU or some kind of MOU, but she'll get back to us the next few days. But again, whatever agreement is being drafted, it's between City Council's lawyer and the city's lawyer. And so, we haven't seen that, and it's not clear that it would even be binding on us. So I'm going to continue to try and see what that document is, what the context of it is, but that's really the update on that meeting. We ended that meeting mostly with Tim Curtin and Corporation Counsel just saying that, they wanted to have this agreement before moving forward. And so after that meeting on Monday, Corporation Counsel did provide to the board about 200 megabytes of emails related to our specific request. Unfortunately, Corporation Counsel said that he has removed from those emails anything he has deemed confidential or irrelevant. So unfortunately, because we don't know what Corporation Counsel's removed, we can't say that we actually have the information we've requested. And because there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of emails to go through, it's not necessarily worth our time to do so, knowing that there are maybe a significant number of very important emails that aren't in there. So, just to wrap up, the way that we have gotten information through this investigation has not been directly by requesting it. It's been because, either Mayor Warren or Loretta Scott, President Scott, has told our PD to release information to us. So, that has been the process. Instead of there being kind of a, getting things done in another way, that's what it's been taking. So I'll pause there to see if anyone has questions about that meeting before we move on to Friday's meeting. And I'll obviously let, all of the other board members who were there hop in and correct me or add anything to the discussion.
I know I have a question. So, well, not really a question, but probably a statement or an idea. So I know that, Linda Kingsley's working on this memorandum of intent. Not understanding was the word she used. And what I'm wondering is that, there has to be discussion about confidential or relevant information being withheld. And I'm wondering if that's a conversation that, we as the board should be having with corporate counsel, sending an official letter or something like that to make sure that we get all the information that we've requested, because, and I know that there seems to be contention between, our corporate counsel and ourselves, so at least, some misunderstandings that happen. And I'm wondering if this is, while we're trying to figure out how we're going to actually communicate with them and actually get what we need, wondering if we should, and I'll leave it open to the board also to kind of give their answers, requests, comments about what we're going to do about making sure that we get all the information that we are that we are legally supposed to have. So just
Chair
kind of-
Wilson, I just want to hop in for a quick second to clarify something. At Thursday's meeting, President Scott discussed, or it might have been Friday's meeting, I can't remember, but President Scott discussed two documents. One was a memorandum of understanding, another was a letter of intent. I asked Linda Kingsley what those documents were, and according to Linda Kingsley, the letter of intent is just a reference to the letter that President Scott sent in January. There's no other letter of intention or anything like that.
Thank you. Rabbi Settle?
Yeah, I just want to express my bewilderment as to why no one from the PAB would be involved in the process of drafting this memorandum.
I just want to say it appears that the city believes that Linda Kingsley is, quote, our lawyer.
Well, are we providing any input to her for this draft?
I contacted Linda Kingsley last night to ask, what's the status on this? What's going on? Linda Kingsley told me, quote, excuse me, let me pull up my email here. Linda Kingsley told me, here we go. She says that she hasn't, the last few days have been very demanding for her. She'll be working on this at the end of this week.
Doesn't she have to consult us before she does that, however, if we're supposed to be her client?
She said she's going to touch base soon.
So folks, I just want to make sure that we're acknowledging that people's hands are raised so that we can keep an orderly form of communication during the meeting. Okay, so Reverend Harvey, have you asked all the questions that you wanted to ask so I can move to Danielle?
Good.
All right. Go ahead, Danielle.
Great questions, guys, because I had those same exact questions, but I also had, I also want to know, once she drafts the letter and we see the letter, we get a chance to discuss if we agree with everything in the letter and potentially make changes?
I would be, you're asking two things, what should happen and what will happen. I don't know.
Yeah, what will happen?
I don't know what will happen.
Mhm.
I can't say. What I can say is that I'm not sure that lawyers who aren't ours writing agreements that are about us have any kind of force. Now, I'll just remember too that a memorandum of agreement is a non-legally binding document signed between two parties. So unless city council plans on signing an agreement on our behalf, I'm not sure.
That was my next question too. My next question was going to be, will we be signing this document? They can draft it, but it's up to us if we want to sign it. Am I correct?
I think part of the trouble here, Danielle, is that there may be people in city council who think that they can sign things on our behalf.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Vice Chair McIntosh.
Yeah, I guess I echo the same thing my the board members echo. It sounds, if the language is in there that we can request any information that we deem relevant to things we need, it does appear that maybe this MOU is an additional barrier to what we need. And it seems like from where I'm sitting, we need more clear definitions of, as Chair Wilson said, what's relevant, what's not relevant, what's confidential, what can't we access, and more of a process of how we get the information, because it doesn't seem like that process is defined. So that's what I, think that we need clarification around, like many other policies in government and processes.
Dr. Harrison.
I just want to say that I'm not making a proposal at this time, but I think that we all need to understand that we're going to eventually come up to a crunch time. The city council is it seems clear to me that the city council is intent on having significant say in what we do and how we do it. And we're going to have to decide whether that's acceptable or not, and what to do if it's not acceptable.
Correct.
Because we can dance all we want to, but that's the way it is.
I completely agree. Councilmember Brown. Sorry, Board Member Brown.
Great evening again. What disturbs me is they will release what they deem relevant as if they're mind readers as to what it is that we need. That, of course, is not acceptable. And I personally am a bit disappointed with City Council and their foot dragging. We all came to this, the board, they're going to make changes. This is going to be something awesome. This is for the community. We're going to move forward. And once the board was established, they appear to be, and I could be wrong, just continually throwing up roadblocks and things, hurdles for us to overcome to stop us from doing our work. And if that appears that way to me, I'm wondering what it looks like to the community who expects us to get something done.
Can I respond to that, if you don't mind? So what it looks like to the community is that we're just putting out statements and that we're not doing any work. That's kind of some of the things that I've seen posted. But there's just some things that are not in our control, unfortunately. But that's what it appears to much of the community, because there's lots of things happening, but we can't overcome some of these challenges when every other day it appears that there's a new thing that we're restricted from doing. So I hope that helps. I'm done speaking.
Board Member Brown, are you all set?
Yes, thank you.
Board Member Tucker.
Yes, it does seem as though that this is just another roadblock. To be quite honest, I don't know, just from my perspective, trying to get us to sign a memorandum, what is it? Memorandum of
Understanding.
It directly contradicts our powers. And we continue to hear things that oppose what's in the charter. Like people don't understand what's in they don't understand what's in the charter. So for them to try to get us to sign this, it's kind of, I don't know if you guys feel this way. It's kind of like they're trying to play on our intelligence. Like we don't know what's in the charter. Like we don't know our powers. I don't know if anyone else feels that way, but to me, it kind of, that's how I'm taking it, because you know exactly what we can do. It's in writing. We can read it. You can interpret it. It does say that we can request what we deem as relevant, but for some reason, you're giving us emails and documents that you filtered based on what you deem as relevant, and then trying to get us to sign, this memorandum of understanding. So I don't know, it seems as though it's kind of like they're trying to play on our intelligence and see if we really know our powers.
Can I respond to that as well?
Yes.
I guess one of the things that keep coming up consistently, we know we're an agency within an agency, that we ultimately, separate from the RPD, but are under essentially the city council. So I guess I'm kind of confused on why we would need an additional document if we are a part of that agency, in a sense.
I can reply to that, but I'm happy to wait until Dr. Harvey's spoken.
Well, I'm just I think we've all sort of expressed our feelings about this, and I'm just wondering, it sounds like to me now that we forced to wait until the memorandum is at least presented to us, and then we as I think Board Member Tucker said, then we make this, we look at it, we approve what we approve, we disapprove what we disapprove, and we send it back, and then we begin negotiate. Is there a point that we can say we start negotiating? It looks like it's not gonna, we don't have the input to develop the memorandum. So what are we gonna do? Are we gonna wait until it gets to us and then we negotiate, dialogue, or, so what's our point of action with the information that we have? What do we do?
So I guess I'll say something to that. So I think the concern that there's two concerns that I hear the board saying tonight, that, we didn't necessarily hire Linda Kingsley to be our lawyer. And that, we, even though we have a representative that is representing us because we're under city council, but that doesn't necessarily really, there's some discomfort about this particular memorandum of understanding intent representing our interests. It does seem like the Linda Kingsley will go ahead and ask for our input. However, I'm really, concerned because, how much is our input going to be actually in the document? And really, are we setting a precedent that we're going to be using this lawyer to represent our interests when we clearly need independent counsel? So those are the two things that I see of concern. You're right, Dr. Harvey, that there really is at this point nothing that we can do, as we're still trying to consider our own options for our own independent counsel. But that's just what I see happening here.
I can't figure out how to raise my hand, so I'm just gonna do this. I'll go back to Dr. McIntosh's question. This whole idea that we're an agency within an agency, is similarly like the memorandum of agreement is something that's being told to us, right? All of these issues keep coming back to not having a lawyer that can stand up and say, this is actually what this is what, because I or you or anyone on this board can say and show the law, just read the text to people, and people will not follow it unless you have a lawyer behind you saying, I'm willing to back you up on this and I can take you to court too, right? That is, at the end of the day, I think that's to be the lesson learned from this, is it doesn't matter how right you are, it doesn't matter what the law says unless you have a lawyer. And so part of what I want to emphasize about the MOU is the law is clear. This information should have been ours a long time ago. This MOU thing is something that's been created by the city to say, here's another justification for why we're not going to hand over information, because now we want an agreement, right? And I think we're going to discuss later tonight about why that delay has probably cost the community of Rochester already. And I want to make sure we can get to that tonight.
I guess because, some of us are on timelines. Because everyone here has a different term. And whether, you decide to be, reapply or whatever, we want to get some work done, some more work done. So, that's some of the things that we have to think about coming up. That's one of the things in the future, I think June, that we have to also think about, as we're getting closer to that point.
Rabbi Settle.
Also, the other thing I want to say, I wasn't sure it was clear on what Conrad said earlier, is that Tim Curtin ascertained that we were only allowed to have certain types of information depending upon what type of work we were doing. And I think that that's also something of concern. Because again, in terms of, as Conrad said before, in terms of what the law seems to say, is that there's nothing about it depends on what type of work we're doing. So I just wanted to be sure people also heard about that.
And just to clarify, Tim Curtin doesn't think we have subpoena power, which is interesting because there's lots of emails between the law department and other places that clearly say we have subpoena power. So I would just, to be totally frank, anything that Tim Curtin says about the city charter, I would not put much value in.
Do we have subpoena power?
Absolutely.
Ew.
The lawyers defending us in court had to write an email to the law department to say as much. So yes, there's no doubt about it. Tim Curtin thinks we can only have subpoena power if we're investigating a specific disciplinary issue, which means we don't have disciplinary power. We can't use the power. That's not the case. It's not true. I don't want to use the word gaslighting, but.
And if I may add, it's also, remember that Tim Curtin is representing his client, the police department.
Mhm.
So it's not necessarily personal animus or anything personal in that way, but it has to do with who he's representing in this.
I agree. Board Member Brown.
Yes, now that we've all expressed how we feel and what we think, what's our resolution for now so that we can move on to the next thing? Because I know we have a lot on the agenda tonight.
I will just say that I will speak to Linda Kingsley tomorrow to see if she's any updates. I think that the next step is independent counsel. And I will say that on that front, we can talk about it maybe at the end of this meeting, but we should have an update, quote, very soon on that.
Okay.
Very soon.
All right.
Go ahead, Chair Wilson. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Connor. I don't want to interrupt you. Go ahead.
No, I suppose we could briefly talk about Friday's meeting, unless Reverend Nikoloff wanted to say something.
Just to Dr. McIntosh's sharing of community concerns to the members of the community. I know it's frustrating that it doesn't seem like action is happening, but this board, by raising this concern here tonight publicly, is trying to help you, the public, see what is happening in your government, which is allowing the police to continue to act without accountability. So even though this is not as exciting as a disciplinary hearing or as going out and taking care of the Daniel Prude case overnight or whatever issues there, no, someone has to talk about this stuff. And our executive director, in using his legal knowledge as well as our leadership under Chair Wilson and Vice Chair McIntosh, in leading us into these discussions, is a way of holding them accountable. It's about what are we going to do? What does the community want to say to their elected representatives about the way that they're conducting business, right? So at the end of the day, this conversation wouldn't be happening without a police accountability board, because it's the nature of these things to be kept out of the public eye so that you just assume everything's working. And it should be clear that part of accountability is exposing what is not working and how that intentionally not working is obscuring injustice. So this is the work. It's happening right in front of you. And if you have that concern, make sure other people are watching these meetings, or make sure that your favorite media outlet is covering them so that more people can be aware of what's happening in your government that you support, pay taxes for, and elected.
Thank you so much. So I think that actually sums it up for me. I mean, I think that's pretty
I had
much
one piece of information left on this, Chair Wilson, before we move on.
okay.
I just want to clarify for the public, because there has been some misinformation put out by Corporation Counsel. Corporation Counsel told City Council a few weeks ago that the city there were affidavits from, I think, 12 to 15 different officers. We have sworn written statements from every officer on the scene. During the meeting with the mayor, Tim Curtin said that was not true, that he had misinformed council. We don't know how many sworn statements are on the scene, but Tim Curtin confirmed that that's not true. So I want to make that clear to the public. And with that, Chair Wilson, I think we can move on.
All right, folks. So we're going to go ahead and move on to our executive session. So we're going to move into executive session. So we can be talking about some issues that are going on, but I want to make sure that I get the statement correct. So Connor, can you help, please?
Yes. Okay. So to explain to folks, so first off, an executive session is a closed door part of an open meeting. You're allowed to close a meeting in very limited circumstances. One of those circumstances is when doing so may endanger a current public safety investigation, policing investigation, or if it may disclose, confidential information that can't be released to the public. We are going to be discussing in this closed session some body-worn camera footage that may be related to our current investigation into the pepper spraying of children and pepper spraying of people in the city of Rochester. And so to view that body-worn camera footage as a group, we have to close the meeting to protect the sensitive information that will be revealed in that footage because it is not redacted. So Chair Wilson, with that being said and explained to the public, we can have a vote to go into executive session.
All right, so looking for a vote to go into executive session.
So move.
Okay, second, please.
I'll
I
second.
second.
All right, all in favor of going to executive session?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we have everybody. All right, so none opposed. We're going to go ahead and go into executive session now.